You see a lot of strange things in the ERD, and after 20-something years in this line of work, you stop trying to explain everything. But some things stick with you, like the smell of old blood and iodine. Things that don't add up, no matter how long you think about them. It was a Friday night, early fall. The ER was in full swing. Drunks from the bars, a few fender benders, a couple of kids with sports injuries. I was charge nurse on shift, trying to keep the flow moving, checking in with triage, helping stabilize patients, making sure the residents didn't kill anyone by accident. Just another night around 11:30 p.m. The radio call came in. Motorcycle accident. Male, mid-30s. No helmet. High speed. We prepped trauma room. 3. I remember the sound of the gurney wheels hitting the floor when they brought him in. It's always too loud in the ear, but that moment felt like everything stopped for a beat. The paramedics were working hard, doing compressions, pumping in fluids. His left side was severely scraped, exposing bone, and his chest was a mangled mess. Massive trauma, a collapsed lung, fractured ribs, and likely a cardiac contusion. We launched into a full team effort, trying everything: tubes, paddles, medications, you name it. But sometimes the body simply can't endure such trauma. Time of death was officially recorded at 11:49 p.m. I stood there for a moment, just breathing. I was the one who zipped up the body bag. His mouth remained agape, jaw slack. I've witnessed that look countless times. Not pain, but a frozen stillness. He died quickly, probably without even realizing it. We left him for a moment, a routine practice to afford the deceased a measure of dignity before transport to the morgue. I instructed Jessie, one of the newer nurses, to attend to the room while I retrieved the necessary paperwork. She was standing just outside the door, and then it started screaming. Not a little noise, not a groan, not a wheeze, screaming raw, panicked, guttural, coming from that room. I heard it. Jessie heard it. So did one of the techs walking past. We all froze, just looked at each other for maybe 3 or 4 seconds. It kept going, just this deep, tearing sound, like someone who'd realized something terrible, a little too late. I didn't think. I just opened the door. The lights were on, nothing flickering, no alarms, no signs of movement, but the body, his mouth was still open like it had just finished, letting that sound out. His chest wasn't moving, no pulse, cold to the touch, still dead. I walked in and stood there staring at him. I've seen families scream like that when they lose someone. I've heard pain so pure it could shatter glass, but never from the dead. We checked everything. Monitors were off, no signs of resuscitation, no muscle reflexes. We even reviewed the footage from the hallway camera. Later, nothing entered, nothing left. I documented it in the log as best I could. Auditory anomaly reported from trauma. Room 3. Following confirmed time of death. No physical activity noted. No patient vitals. Incident witnessed by multiple staff. That's as clinical as I could make it. I didn't want to write screaming dead man in an official hospital record. Later that night, Jessie came to me in the break room. She didn't say much, just asked, "Do you think maybe he didn't know he was dead yet?" I didn't answer. We don't talk about it much, but that room stayed empty for a while. Not because we're superstitious, we're not. We're nurses. We trust vitals, not ghosts, but still no one wanted to be in there alone. Sometimes I walk past trauma room 3 late at night when the ER is quiet for once, and I think about him, the speed, the crash, the panic, that frozen face, the scream, and I wonder what kind of fear follows. You passed the moment your heart stops beating. No flickering lights, no chills, just questions and silence. Hello friends, thank you for watching. A special shout out to our subscribers. You keep these eerie stories alive. But here's the thing, only 30% of viewers are subscribed. If you enjoy our content, hitting subscribe helps us more than you know. It takes a second, but makes a huge difference while you're at it. Like and share to keep the chills coming. Thanks again. You made this possible. See you in the next one. If you dare. There's a rhythm to the era. Even in chaos, you come to rely on it, like a tide that never stops. The codes, the saves, the losses. You learn how to breathe with it. You learn how to let go when it's time. But some stories stay. There was a young man, mid-20s, maybe brought in after a massive stroke. No history, no warning, just collapsed in his apartment. His roommate found him on the floor, still breathing, eyes open, but unseen. We tried. God knows we tried. Neurology was there within minutes. CT confirmed the worst, complete brain herniation. No brainstem activity, no response to stimuli. Cold clinical, absolute. The attending declared him brain dead after 2 full sets of tests. That's the legal definition of death. The family, his mother, 2 sisters, they were destroyed but kind, quiet, and brave. They agreed to organ donation, said he was the kind of person who'd want that. We got the transplant team on the line and began the process. I don't always stay involved at that stage. The ICU team and/or handled the transition, but I was there when they wheeled him out. Still warm heart, still beating on its own. Even though the mind was gone, he didn't look like death. That's the part that gets you, the stillness. Sure, but not the still kind of peace you expect from someone who's passed. Just pause, like he could start breathing differently. Any moment, like if you waited long enough, something would flicker. Hours later, one of the OR nurses came down to find me. Eyes wide, face pale. I knew something was wrong. The second she opened her mouth, "They haven't started." She said they couldn't. What happened? She hesitated. Then the heart, it reacted. I walked with her to the surgical floor. The transplant surgeon was already writing notes, hands shaking just a bit. He wasn't a dramatic man. All business calm. Under pressure, I'd watched him work dozens of times. But he looked rattled. They'd opened the chest per protocol. Everything was set. The moment his gloved hand touched the heart, not clamped, not stimulated, just a gentle touch. It started beating faster, harder. Not the mechanical beat of a pacemaker, not a medication reaction, like a fist pounding from the inside that wasn't supposed to happen. The patient was legally and clinically dead. There was no brain activity, no nerve signals, no drugs in the system that would have triggered such a response. The room went quiet. One of the assistants swore she saw the EKG spike just for a moment before it flattened again. But there were no leads connected, no monitors. They were prepping for organ harvest, not resuscitation. It delayed the procedure. No one wanted to touch the heart again for a full 10 minutes. The team stepped back, rechecked everything. Vitals, none. Reflexes, none. Still brain dead. Eventually they proceeded. The heart was transplanted successfully into a waiting recipient. It worked. It saved someone, but it didn't leave them. Not the family, not the surgeon, not the staff. Later, the doctor said something I'll never forget. He was standing in the hallway, staring out the window. It was like it knew it was leaving. He said like it wasn't ready. I've seen hearts stop. I've seen them start again too. But this was different. Not medical, not miraculous. Just human. Sometimes in this job, you feel like you understand everything. Science, biology, the limits of life. And sometimes you're reminded that the body has its own secrets, that maybe, just maybe, the heart remembers something the mind has already let go. Still think about him, the brain-dead boy with the heart that wouldn't stop. In the ER, you become accustomed to coincidences, patients sharing last names, birth dates, or even injuries. You dismiss it as chance and move on. Yet, some nights demand a pause. I recall a specific name spoken twice that evening, once to a registrar, then to a trauma surgeon. Clara, a simple, soft, familiar name. First Clara arrived around 7:20 p.m. She was the victim of a head-on collision just outside the city limits. Sedan versus truck, unresponsive at the scene. Paramedics reported she coded en route, though we barely managed to revive her. She was in her mid-30s, with light brown hair, pale skin smeared with blood, and wore a silver necklace engraved with the word breathe. She had massive internal bleeding, pelvis shattered. The trauma team worked fast, but she was crashing hard while we were in the thick of it, pushing blood, calling for the OR triage. Called out to me, "We've got another trauma." They said female, same age, car wreck, names Clara, coming in hot. I paused. Same name. They nodded. Clara, same date of birth too, March 14th, 1987. I blinked. That's not something you hear twice in a lifetime, let alone in an hour. I walked over to the charge desk to double check. Maybe a mistake. Maybe it was the same woman's I'd found at a second crash site, but no, the paramedics radioed in new details. Different location, different time, different vehicle, no passengers, no overlap, no explanation. Two Claras, same name, same birthday, no connection. The second Clara arrived just as we lost the first. I remember glancing at the clock as we called the time of death for the first Clara, 8:04 p.m. The second one rolled in at 8:06 p.m. She looked nothing like the first. Dark skin, curly hair, long scar across her forearm that looked years old. She was semi-conscious, mumbling something about her brakes, failing chest trauma, fractured ribs, airway compromised. I held her hand while anesthesia intubated her. She squeezed my fingers once tight. I told her we were here. She wasn't alone. She kept whispering something over. I leaned in close and made out two words. She coded on the table. A massive cardiac arrest. We worked on her for 12 minutes, but she flatlined, unresponsive. Time of death, 8:18 p.m. Just 14 minutes after the other Clara. We ran every check, cross-referencing names, next of kin, photos, and social security numbers. They were completely unrelated. Different hometowns. No matching records, not even mutual friends on social media. Later we found nothing. Coincidence, the reports would say, but what are the odds of two women named Clara, born on the same day, dying the same night in separate car crashes, in the same ER? Some of the younger nurses joked about doppelgangers. Someone else wondered if it was a glitch, like life repeating a mistake. Me. I just stood outside room 4, where the second Clara had been, and tried to understand the silence she left behind. I've seen the world end for families hundreds of times. I've held the hands of strangers as they took their last breath. But that night felt like something else entirely. Not haunting, not supernatural, just uncanny, like two lines drawn years apart that somehow met at the same point for no reason. We could name, same birthday, same death, somewhere in the cold, sterile logic of the hospital. That should make sense, but it never had. Some nights in the ER stay with you, not because of the blood or the chaos, or even the death. It's what you can't chart, can't explain, can't forget. I was 5 hours into a double shift when they brought him in, male early 40s, restrained by paramedics, not from trauma, just uncontrollable. He'd been found alone in a church parking lot, half-dressed, screaming at the sky. They said he'd been shouting Bible verses, but in reverse, like someone hit rewind on the scriptures. They thought it was drugs. It's always the first guess. Meth bath salts, PCP, but tox screen came back clean. Nothing in his system. Not even alcohol. His vitals were fine. Strong pulse, slightly elevated heart rate, but nothing critical. No head trauma, no fever. He shouldn't have been acting the way he was, but he was. I was assigned to him because I'd handled psych holds before, knew how to keep calm, how to manage the unpredictable ones. When I stepped into the room, he stopped moving dead still, and then he looked up right at me and said my name. Clear, calm, nurse, Anna. I froze. I'd never met this man. No ID on him, no wallet, no phone, no paperwork. He hadn't spoken to anyone coherent enough to ask names, but he said mine, like it had weight, like he knew me. I tried to push past it, told myself maybe he heard someone say it, maybe I left my badge visible. I took a breath step forward, and that's when he started again. Thrashing, eyes rolling back, tongue moving so fast, it barely sounded human. It wasn't random noise. It was speech reversed, over and over again, muttering phrases like God is not here, and deliver us, but all jumbled, like he was pulling them from a broken record. We had to sedate him, even under. He didn't stop entirely. His lips twitched. He whispered. And just before the meds fully kicked in, he turned his face toward me and said, "You can't save her." It didn't feel like a threat. It felt like certainty. I didn't understand what he meant. Not then, but later that night, just before the end of my shift, my phone rang. I stepped out to take it. It was the nursing home where my mother had been recovering after a mild stroke. She'd been stable, talking, laughing earlier that day on the phone with me. She died in her sleep. Sudden cardiac arrest. No signs, no warning, no suffering, they said. Just gone. I stood in the hallway frozen, holding my phone in one hand, that man's words replaying in my head. You can't save her. We never found out who he was. Fingerprints led nowhere. No missing persons matched. After a few days, he was transferred to a psych facility. I heard later, he stopped speaking entirely, just stared at the wall. I still think about that night more than I should. Not because I'm looking for answers. I've stopped trying to find them. But because every once in a while when I check in on a new patient and they say my name, like they already know me, I feel that cold little ripple down my spine.
And I wonder, what else don't we understand about the people who come through these doors? What might they be carrying behind their silence, or their screams? There are wounds we can't see, and some things, no matter how much training you have, you just can't save.
Hospitals are full of echoes, old footsteps, lives, half-remembered words spoken just before the end. You tell yourself it's just the setting, the stress, the mind looking for meaning. But sometimes even in the brightest corners, shadows linger. Room 4 was just a regular trauma room. Same beige walls, same humming monitors, same scuffed tile floors. Nothing unusual about it. But over the years, it became different, subtle things. At first, a cold spot in the back, left corner coal lights going off when the room was empty. Patients glancing toward the same spot again and again like they were watching someone we couldn't see. I brushed it off for years. We all did. Nurses get superstitious. It's part of the job, but we also get practical. If the vitals are good and the meds are working, you don't spend time chasing ghosts. Then came Mrs. Langley. She was in her late 70s, COPD, pneumonia, some fluid retention, sweet woman, sharp mind. She called me darling. Every time I walked in, her chart wasn't good, but she was stable enough to hope I was doing my overnight rounds. When I found her sitting up, staring at the corner of room 4, just quietly watching, I asked if she was okay. She didn't look at me. Instead, she said he doesn't blink. I asked her who she meant. The soldier, she said softly. He's been sitting there all night. I turned, but the chair in the corner was empty. I smiled, gently, tried to pass it off. Maybe it's the meds I offered. Sometimes they mess with our heads a little. She shook her head. He told me I'll be joining him soon. I remember the way she said it. She showed no fear or sadness, only a resigned acceptance. I informed the charge nurse. During the report, we checked her medications and vitals. Everything was stable. She appeared better the following morning, but 3 days later, during a calm, uneventful shift, her heart suddenly stopped. I remained with her body until transport arrived. As they wheeled her out, I glanced back at the room. For a split second, I swore I saw the faint outline of someone sitting in the corner chair. Not a fully visible figure or face, but the subtle impression of a presence, as if the room itself was holding its breath. After that, I started paying closer attention. Over the next year, 6 different patients in room 4 mentioned seeing a man in uniform, always in the same quiet spot. Not all of them saw him clearly, but enough described the same details. Green fatigues, a hat in his lap, boots planted firm. One patient, an elderly man with a heart condition, saluted the corner before he passed. Another, barely coherent from sepsis, whispered, "Tell him not yet," over and over again. We checked records. No veteran had been admitted to room 4 in months. No visitors matching that description. No reason for anyone to be there. Some of the staff started requesting different rooms. Others laughed it off, nervous-like. But we all started looking at that corner a little differently. I started speaking to him quietly, under my breath when no one was around. Just a hello, just respect, because if there's someone there, if some part of a man in uniform is still sitting vigil in room 4, I think he's not cruel, just waiting. Maybe watching over the ones he knows are near the end. Maybe making sure no one leaves alone. I don't pretend to know what happens after the heart monitor flatlines, but in that room with its heavy silence and corner shadows, sometimes it feels like someone already does.
Thank you all for joining me on these journeys. Your support means everything, and I love reading your reactions and personal experiences in the comments. If these stories kept you on the edge of your seat or gave you chills, please hit that like button and consider subscribing for more haunting stories.
Have you had a similar experience or an unexplainable story you'd like to share? I'd love to read your thoughts in the comments below. Each story enriches our growing community of horror enthusiasts. If you know someone who enjoys a good scare, please share this video with them. Stay tuned for more spine-chilling stories. Remember, the most terrifying tales are often those that could happen to anyone. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video, if you dare.